Good morning, everybody. This is a joint session of our county's Health and Human Services and Planning, Housing, and Economic Development Committee. We are going to have two work sessions today. The first is to discuss the supplemental appropriation and CIP amendment through the Department of Health and Human Services for $13,647,000 for emergency homeless shelter. And the second work session is regarding the FY22 operating budget, Homeless Services, Rental Assistance, and Housing Initiative Fund. Ms. Yao will be staffing our first work session, and I did receive a text message from Chairman Reamer, who is going to be running a little bit late this morning, and facilitating us this morning will be the lead of our homeless and vulnerable populations, Councilmember Glass. Councilmember Glass, I want to thank you again for doing such a wonderful and amicable job. And being such a leader in the space and your willingness to step forward and address this critically important issue. So with that, I turn this session over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the kind words and know that it is an absolute team effort. All of us here on the PHED and HHS committees have been working for years. In some cases, well, given that four of us are been here for 3 years, I'll make that comment to Mr. Rice for years, but particularly over the last year and the pandemic, we have all thrown ourselves into making sure that nobody becomes homeless so that everybody has a safe place to stay healthy and safe. And so you teed this conversation up beautifully, and I'll just turn it over to Ms. Yao to talk about the emergency homeless shelter.
Good morning, everyone. Today, the Joint Committee will be reviewing the County Executive's recommended CIP amendment and supplemental appropriation for the emergency homeless shelter project. The recommended project description form is attached at circle 4 of your packet. The total amount of the project is $14.647 million over the six years CIP period. The recommended funding sources are $5.775 million in federal community development block grant funds and $8.872 million in GO bonds. The supplemental appropriation request is $13.647 million. The project includes the acquisition and construction of a 2-floor building on 1.26 acres at 11600 Nepple Street, and it will provide congregation, meals, and medical and case management services. The facility capacity allows for 97 to 102 beds per floor. The work is scheduled to be completed by the end of calendar year 2021. The project is needed because the current homeless sheltering facilities are insufficient for the current population and future projections. And the current facility that provides these services will not be available starting in January 2022. So the executive staff has actually provided an updated cost for the purchase of the facility at $5.497 million. And that would actually reduce the amount of federal community development block grant funds by $278,000. However, the executive has explained that the total project cost would remain the same, as they would use that amount to cover construction costs for environmental remediation. But that would also increase the level of GO bond funding. So a marked up PDF for the Joint Committee to review is attached at Circle 5 of the packet. The Council has received some testimony and correspondence in support of the project, and as a result, Council staff recommends approving the project with the changes in funding to land acquisition, construction expenditures, and sources of funding as reflected in Circle 5.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Yao. I know that I have a few questions, but I think we also have Mr. Osint, I saw pop on, and Ms. Harris is now here. I'm just trying to get my bearings here. Okay, I don't know, Ms. Harris, do you have any comments you want to share? No, you're good. Mr. Osint, do you have anything that you want to share?
No, just here to answer questions.
Okay. I have a few questions, and if my colleagues want to just send me a text or hop in when I'm done, that would be wonderful. So I'm pleased to see or hear that this project is slated to be completed by the end of this year. That is really exciting. And I know that a number of organizations are already looking into their calendars and trying to do their planning based on this timeline. So we're all optimistic that things are going to move forward according to schedule. For those who are following this conversation, I think it's helpful to take a deeper dive and just maybe share some of the details as to who the individuals this facility will actually be helping. I believe it's men, but Ms. Harris, if you can go into a little detail about that and maybe about the expected contracts and partnerships that would be associated with this facility.
Sure, happy to do that. So yes, this facility would be for men. So the plan is to move. Right now we have men's shelter in 3 different facilities. So once the new facility is ready, we will condense and have all the men in the new facility, and then we will make use of the other facilities for women. That includes Crabs Branch, which we recently just built the sprung structure. So that will now be used for women. And then we will have 2 TAF courts for women, and Progress Place will be unisex. So we will be able to serve both men and women there. As for contracts, so we have existing providers right now. We intend to continue with our existing providers. We do have to make some adjustments to the contracts because of the changes in the facility. So we will be doing that over the next few months.
Okay, thank you for that. And I just have one other just general comment question. It was about a year ago, a little more than a year ago, when we convened. I'm not sure if it was this joint committee or just HHS, but we were specifically talking about Progress Place and the special appropriation to make sure that Progress Place had the infrastructure needed to take care of, to carry out its duties, quite frankly. And it was a tough conversation, recognizing the way that Progress Place was built and the public-private partnership that got it to where it is, but then recognizing that that process was not optimal because the service provider wasn't brought in, and the arrangement that helped create it didn't recognize the daily wear and tear and the stress that that facility would actually receive. And so, Mr. Awesome, just generally, how is this project, aside from it not being a public-private partnership, what else have we learned from Progress Place to make sure that we don't have to come back in a few years and have a special appropriation for this facility?
Yeah, I think if the 2 facilities are not necessarily as similar, the activities that will take place at Progress Place, there, as you know, there are a multitude of operational pieces to that facility that will not be replicated here at Neville Street. Neville Street will be first and foremost a homeless shelter, and so we will renovate the facility for that particular use. I will also add that the Department of General Services and our partners at HHS have learned a great deal over the last year and a half, not just with the sprung addition at Crabs Branch. We've also rehabbed 6 TAF court for the purposes of sheltering. We've also converted a number of our rec facilities to serve as temporary shelters. And so our collective team is well versed in preparing these facilities. That said, the PDF that's in front of council today, or the committees today, represents the minimum that we will need to do to turn that building, that 30,000 square feet, into a homeless shelter ready for residents by the end of the year. One of the points that we made in pursuing this supplemental was related to the ownership of the facility, which is very important to us, because as the committees know well, this has been a very fluid and evolving year for us and will continue into the future. And so the fact that we own this facility, will be able to go back and make changes, whether that's to the exterior or interior. We'll be able to ebb and flow as the need presents. So that is an important element, and I would not be surprised if we are back to these committees for future requests based on the operators and programmatic needs. That would not surprise me, but we will certainly do our best with the resources that we have and the time that we have in order to get this up to code, meeting the needs for showering, food service, and obviously sleeping areas for 200 homeless persons. So that'll be first and foremost. And then, as we get into the design process, which is obviously well underway, we're in due diligence right now, we will own this building by mid-May, and then construction will immediately commence. As we learn along the way, we will certainly be prepared to come back and report how things are going. And as we get a little bit further along, I'd be happy to provide tours for any of the council members who might be interested to see the work in progress. So it'll move quickly. We've got about a 6-month time frame to work on, but happy to dialogue throughout.
Thank you for that. And I do agree with you about what those differences are, and that it can't be understated that the county owns this facility, right? So that is puts us in a much different position. But you alluded to the fact that you might be coming back talking about the programmatic aspect of what's going on in those facilities. And so that just leads me to follow up with knowing that the actions taking place in those buildings, the programs that will be provided are part of our programmatic budget. And we're going to be having a conversation essentially after this agenda item about that in a larger scale. Are the providers being brought in for parts of these conversations so that we don't have to keep going back and forth once they start their programming and move in?
Yeah, I'll defer to Amanda Harris on that, on the program piece of it. But again, from a physical standpoint, whether this is 200 men, it's obviously planned as a men's shelter. If that shifts at some point in the future, we have 2 floors with separate entrances, and so if if we need to segregate the floors and those types of things, those are physical changes that we can make to the building. But programmatically, let me defer to Ms. Harris.
Thank you. Yes, we are definitely in communication with our providers, and we meet regularly with them. We have discussed the layout. We do need to go back to particularly MCCH to talk more about NEBL, but yes, frequent communication. I know that Interfaith Works has already toured Crabs Branch and has some suggestions about how to make it work for them. Each provider has a slightly different take on the building design, so we want to make sure that we are able to accommodate as best as we can.
Excellent. I'm glad to hear those conversations are taking place so it can be built in as close to a holistic fashion and marrying the physical infrastructure with the programmatic needs of our partners. Thank you. I know that Chair Albornoz has some questions.
Yes. Well, first of all, thank you both. This is good news, and clearly the supplemental appropriation makes a lot of sense. Ownership is so important to be able to facilitate and have flexibility moving forward as we need to make adjustments. And in the long run, actually, I think it's going to save the county a lot of resources over the lifespan of this facility, and because of the very important and sensitive nature of the work that will go on in this facility. And Ms. Harris, I just want to publicly once again thank you and your team for your leadership. I've lost track of how many balls you have in the air right now. You probably have too, to some degree. But I know you had mentioned over the next few months engaging with the providers. As you can imagine, there's an anxiousness in confirming that they will be able to move forward formally. And I know they'll appreciate very much your comments here before the dais, but I'm continuing to hear concerns about staffing because these are tough jobs in a good year. But on top of everything that everyone is experiencing right now, the longest runway possible to be able to plan and operationalize programming is helpful more than ever before. So we'd just love to encourage you to reach out as early as you reasonably can to engage in those discussions so we can move forward. And then to underscore Councilmember Glass's point about now is the time to engage these organizations in the development of the building, so that we don't have to go back after or have missed an opportunity unintentionally, specifically with regards to design. And the last briefing we received from both of you, again, tremendously positive, moving in the right direction. I think you both had indicated you would formally sit down and discuss both with DGS and HHS together around a table with the providers, acknowledging you both bring different areas of expertise. Would like to strongly encourage you both to set that up as soon as possible, so that both DGS and the incredible team at HHS can work with the providers all at the same time. I also think it will help streamline communication, because everybody's so passionate about this project. We want to make sure it runs well. So more comments than questions, because I think operationally this is pretty straightforward, and the reasons for this appropriation are straightforward. But didn't want to miss the opportunity to make those comments. And I believe Councilmember Rice would like to make a point. Councilmember Glass is facilitating this discussion, but I'll ask Councilmember Glass to call on Councilmember Rice. Thanks.
Well, thank you for those comments, Chair Albornoz. And before I get to Councilmember Rice, I'm going to get to Councilmember Jawando. Then we'll get to Councilmember Rice. And then if Chair Reamer wants to hop in after that, he can do so. Councilmember Jawando.
Thank you to Council Vice President Albornoz and Council Lead Glass. Really appreciate this conversation and all the progress that's been made. I think it's absolutely essential that we own this type of facility, and so really, really happy that we're moving forward with that. It just cannot be underscored enough, the ability to have a 200 plus 102 or so beds per floor, these expanded showers, the group therapy sessions at a time when we are seeing a recovery, but some of our most vulnerable who are going to be the lagging indicator in this recovery. And while we're doing all the work we can, I know Ms. Harris, to Councilmember Albernoz's point, all the work you all doing to prevent people from experiencing homelessness, we know that this is going to be a struggle. And so to have this type of asset online as soon as possible is just going to be really, really helpful. So just wanted to thank you for all your work. I will also belabor the point that working with our partners who are providing such great service to make sure that this meets the design needs and the staffing and the implementation and the timeline for transition, as you're doing, is critically important. So please continue to do that. But just wanted to make those points. But thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Jawando. Councilmember Rice.
Thank you very much, Lead Glass, and thank you, Vice President and Chair, and then the other Chair, Councilmember Reamer. Amanda, maybe my question is for you. I'm not sure who I should direct this to, but with our previous facility that was on Goody, we weren't near a lot of stores, shops, that nature. I drove by the site yesterday. So I saw it. I saw the construction that's going on with the parking garage that's right next door, all of that. As I started to just think about the shopping center where we have the grocery store and a number of the other stores, the other shopping center that's across the street from that, there's a multitude of things that are there that oftentimes are challenges for us when it comes to our people who are experiencing homelessness, because those tend to be hangout areas that oftentimes then become issues where the greater community says, oh, this is our homeless population and they're hanging out and smoking or drinking or whatever the case may be. And I see it as an opportunity. I see it as an opportunity for us to really focus on employment for a lot of these venues and really have conversations with some of the folks there about ways in which we can already start before we even put that first shovel in the ground about developing relationships. And so I'm just curious, knowing the Home Goods and the other stores that are there, is it possible for us to start reaching out and doing some of that? I know we have a fast food, Wendy's, which is right there, all kinds of things that we got a car dealership that's right around the corner. And there it could be working in the service department, washing cars, being a salesperson. I mean, there's so many opportunities that are there for jobs. And so instead of seeing it as an obstacle. I see it as an opportunity. As long as we start forging and really looking at building those kinds of things now, you know, pre-construction. So I'm just curious as to what your thoughts are for that.
Sure. Thank you, Councilmember Rice, for that great suggestion and question. I think that's an excellent idea, and we can certainly start engaging with the community. I mean, we typically engage with the community mostly just around, we're here, here's who you call if there's problems, but I think this idea of connecting people to employment makes a lot of sense. And that's definitely been something that's been on our radar, and it's become particularly important during the pandemic. I mean, so many people have lost their jobs, which is why they end up in the homeless continuum. So yes, I will partner with MCCH, and we'll start having those conversations.
Excellent. And so I know that with our PHED brethren that are on the call today, I know when it comes to economic development, working with our chamber, especially the local chamber there, we can start having that conversation around that. Because I know that folks will have questions every single time. Look, and we experienced it here in Darnestown, to where when we had a couple group homes, and then Heritage became a place, unfortunately, that became a hangout, when instead it could have been an opportunity to talk about employment. And really, you know, between that, Harris Teeter and the gas station and the little subsection of small businesses that are there, again, if we do this right, we can accomplish some great things. So thank you for that. My next question is for Mr. Austin really quickly, because you know that I'm always concerned, unfortunately, about some of our people who are experiencing homelessness who end up hanging out in some of our medians and intersections. And so because we have a very busy intersection there at Nicholson and Neville, have we talked to DOT about potentially putting some things in the median strip to ensure that folks aren't tempted to go out there and utilize that area, which is a high traffic area? As I said, we have a lot of things going on, but I'm really concerned about the safety of individuals and from the aspect of them just navigating back and forth. You know, and on Goody, we had to put in the blinking lights to make sure that folks were safe from that perspective. So we talked about DOT, have we talked to DOT, excuse me, about some of the challenges that we may be facing there and some of the additional safety enhancements that we might want to make?
To answer your question, we've not talked to DOT yet. We just got it under contract last week, Councilmember Rice. So, but that is an excellent suggestion and will be my next phone call this morning. I can tell you that, you know, when we expanded Crabs Branch last year, there was a request into DOT to adjust the ride-on stops so that we could actually, instead of stopping up at the top of Shady Grove, we could actually come down Crabs Branch and use the turnaround of highway services. DOT obliged very quickly. Ride-on made that accommodation. And so we have an excellent relationship with DOT and making adjustments as such. And so we'll take that your suggestion to them, and I'm certain that we will have a receptive audience.
Thank you very much. That's it for me, Lead Glass. Thank you. Appreciate it, and appreciate all of your responses, Amanda and Greg. Thank you.
Good questions, and I appreciate Councilmember Rice using the proximity of the new facility, right, and the commercial hub that it is located in. Because when we had a conversation just last week on SEP, you and I talked about workforce development, and I had shared with you that I've already connected WorkSource Montgomery with the People's Committee, which is a subset of the Interagency Commission on Homelessness, people who have been formerly homeless. And one of the things that they've told me is that they would love to have these opportunities in the shelters when they're there. And so I think the proximity and the location of this new shelter will create new partnerships, as you inquired about. Good stuff. PHED Committee Chair, Mr. Reamer.
Thank you. Good discussion. Thank you, Councilmember Glass. Not a ton to add. I guess a question I'm getting, or I'd like to ask, that's proximate to the Montgomery County ride-on bus depot, right, Craig? One of them.
It's near the it's certainly proximate to the Nicholson Court facility.
Is that where? How do we use that facility? What is that?
That's ride-on service depot. The Neville Street property immediately abuts the WMATA depot that they're in the White Flint area. And then across the street from this property is the pre-release and pretrial facility, the county's pre-release and pretrial. And then the construction activity that Councilmember Rice referred to is Pepco is building a substation right next door. So there's a huge construction project immediately next door. And then Washington Gas is a little bit further down the street, and their depot is there. So a lot of activity in the area.
So I guess what I was really getting at is, are there buses that are regularly going there to end their, their shift, maybe even at night? Is there any way to kind of leverage both WMATA and Ride-On so that a person could have a bus ride to the shelter that might be a little different than the usual route, or is that not really an opportunity?
We will check the Ride-On. This particular property is very accessible to Ride-On. So you have both Randolph and Nebel and Maryland 355 and a number of other routes. And so we'll get a handle on, as I reach out to DOT today, we'll get a handle on which routes are accessible and what those times are. But that is certainly something that we can follow up on. And I know that Amanda is well tuned to the Ride-On schedules and accessibility to the shelter itself. And again, we'll work with our operators and partners on that as well.
Okay, when you say it's accessible transit, that's because of 355 mostly, right? Not necessarily Park Lawn or?
No, there are several routes that run through both Randolph, Nebel, and Park Lawn. That entire area is serviced by Ride-On, and I believe there are multiple routes. So it's not just 355. And then, of course, we're 2 blocks from the White Flint Metro Station. So it's just a short walk up Marinelli to the WMATA. So you have both Metro access as well as Ride-On access, robust Ride-On access. Okay.
Well, I think we ought to be a little concerned about the walkability of the area. We do have the new Nebel Street bike lane, which went in right there, and that slows down cars and creates a better pedestrian environment. But I was walking on Park Lawn not too long ago from 355 over towards some of the restaurants and retail, and it's not safe. A lot of the turns coming off onto the street are pretty hairy, and it's possible that we'll have a lot of foot traffic coming from the bus lines. So we might want to see if there are some additional tweaks we want to make to walkability there. So as you're talking to DOT, please ask them also to consider what the most likely paths are for folks walking, and whether we can make some improvements there as well, please.
Will do. Thank you.
But good project. Glad we're getting it done. And I'm gathering we have sufficiently addressed the questions we've heard, particularly from MCCH about their timing. Do you feel, Councilmember Glass, that you have satisfactory answers there for how they'll be engaged in the planning process?
So far, I know that particularly MCCH has been having conversations. Personally, based on the questions that I and Chair Albornoz asked as well, I know that more engagement is always better, but we are working on a timeline here as well. So we want to make sure that the facility is open, but that it is built for the needs that our providers are going to provide. And so, right?
Yeah, we need their expertise in the design. So we're certainly looking for a good report from all the stakeholders involved about their participation here. Thank you.
Well,
thank you.
Thank you for those questions. And, I'll also add to the transportation component. I know that Ride-On Flex, right, which operates kind of an Uber-ish type system, operates, I believe, in Rockville and then in a greater Wheaton, Aspen Hill area, which is pretty much on both ends of where we're talking about. So quite possibly working with DOT to create a Ride-On Flex for this particular area, or expanding one of the service areas so that individuals there have greater flexibility, to the points that you and Councilmember Rice made as well. I think that would be smart. Next up, Councilmember Friedson.
Thank you, Councilmember Glass. Appreciate the conversation. I agree with comments that have been made about the need to own the facility. I mean, this is a disruptive situation to begin with for the residents we're serving, and not having control by the public sector of the asset of the building, and having that be up in the air, so to speak, and be another potential disruption to an already disruptive situation is something that we need to get out of. And so this is moving us in that direction. I think it's a positive. We need to create as much stability as we can in the things that we can control in order to provide the type of service to a vulnerable population that needs our support. And I appreciate everybody's work in doing that across county government and beyond, since this is a broader effort than just county government. I did want to drill down on a couple items that folks have already mentioned. I'll start with where Councilmember Reamer left off. In terms of MCCH, they're aware of the new space, where it is, what the specs are, how it's going to work, what the timeline is? They've been notified of that? And have they been given formal notice about their contract and whether or not it'll be renewed, or if not, do we have a timeline of when that notice will be provided?
Their FY22 contract will be renewed. They have been alerted to that. And then we will start a new contract in January when the new facility is ready. And they have been made aware of that.
Okay, great. I just want to make sure that everybody was on the same page with the contract, since obviously that's important for them to know, and to be able to plan accordingly. I echo the comments made about the need to have input from the providers on the design. I just wanted to get a sense, Mr. Assad, you noted that the contractors, presumably architects and others that the county contracts through, has experience with this. Could you just speak a little bit to that, of what, if any, experience the contractors we're using have on congregate living facilities and retrofitting shelters like the one we're talking about here?
Sure. From both the architectural as well as the engineering consultants, we will have a team of contractors. First and foremost, the environmental team will go in first, and then we have architects and engineers design the facility. And we rely an awful lot on HHS and the providers to give guidance and in terms of how the building is laid out and how the bedding or the sleeping areas are laid out, and certainly to meet today's standards. In an effort to keep costs under control at this point, we are trying to do as little demolition as possible, so that rather than gutting the entire building and starting from scratch, we are trying to work with some of the existing walls and infrastructure, all designed around a central core of the building where the plumbing stacks and where the showers will and toilet facilities will be expanded. And then, of course, the kitchen. So all of those things. And then, of course, we mentioned group therapy rooms, as well as multi-purpose rooms and those types of things. We will provide the physical space for those areas, and then we will rely heavily on the operator to tell us what is going to occur in those spaces. And that's a pretty collaborative process, and something that we're pretty accustomed to. The walls and the corridors and the other physical space issues that require as much expertise and nuanced design as you might think. And we would typically defer to the users, the end users, on a lot of that stuff. So we will have, it sounds like MCCH will be the operator, so we will sit down with MCCH, and we have to a certain extent already, and actually walk through the way that we've laid it out in concept, and then refine that over the next 2 months before we put a shovel in the ground, so to speak.
Great. Okay. Well, I appreciate that. I think you've heard from all of us the desire and interest in making sure that they are actively, directly proactively engaged in the design. And I will just point out, I appreciate all of the efforts that are being done to try to limit the costs here. That's important, but we also obviously don't want to be penny wise and pound foolish and end up having more significant costs because it doesn't meet the needs of the partners and ultimately and most importantly the residents they're serving. So I hope that the first point is to get it right. The second point is to do it as cost effectively as possible, and that we can do it as collaboratively as possible, and appreciate your efforts and Ms. Harris and her team's efforts to make that happen. We certainly want to make sure that we're partnering with our partners, so to speak. Certainly, and DGS appreciates that, and that's, I'll reiterate, I think there was probably a good opportunity for DGS and HHS to report back to these committees as we move through a very rapid design process as well as construction, and provide regular updates to the committees so that we're all on the same page and stay in the same loop as this as we begin this effort. Obviously, time is an issue, and so we have the perfect storm of time and resources and trying to get things done and for a very important critical mission. So we'll certainly provide real-time data and information and updates as necessary to keep everyone in the loop. Very much appreciate that. I'll just close with my thanks, and just want to echo colleagues' comments earlier about the proximity to jobs and to public transit, both ride-on and metro. I think that this is really significant in that for a lot of different reasons, to be able to get to and from the shelter and a job as part of this effort. That is the goal, and making it easier, not harder, with the places where we locate these facilities is particularly important. So I'm excited about the opportunities that this is going to provide, and I hope we take advantage of that and work with local employers to help move us in that direction, and then also agree on the pedestrian walkability and safety issues as were noted. I think that's a broader issue than just this facility. It is a challenge in this particular area. Once you get just outside the Pike District and White Flint 1 and 2, where we are making significant improvements, it gets more and more challenging as we move forward. And so I think it's something that we have to really monitor and take a look at as we move towards our Vision Zero goals. And this just highlights how many walkability and pedestrian safety issues we have throughout the county. You could locate this facility almost anywhere and say the same thing, and that just speaks to the magnitude of the task before us. So I just wanted to highlight that. It's acutely important here, and it's broadly critical throughout the county, and just shows how much work we have ahead of us. So with that, thank you, Councilmember Glass, and thanks to each of you for all of your work on this.
Thank you, Councilmember Frieds, and I particularly liked your comment of making sure we partner with our partners. We've got to keep doing that. And that is the goal here. And I see nobody else wanting to comment. So before us, we have a special appropriation for the Department of Health and Human Services for an emergency homeless shelter for the amount of $13,647,000. Does anyone like to make a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Chair Albornoz moves and Councilmember Jawando seconds it. All those in favor of this special appropriation? All those of us present unanimous. Okay, thank you very much.
Sorry, I was here. I hit unmute instead of whatever. You know what I mean?
It's all good. 1 year later, we know what you mean. Thank you, Chair Reamer. So we are all very excited. Look forward to Mr. Austin, as you said, getting regular updates on this to make sure it's moving along and open by the end of this calendar year. Excellent. Thank you very much for all that you're doing. Ms. Yao or Ms. McMillan, I'm not sure who's walking us through.
Ms. McMillan will take on the second item now.
Okay.
Good morning. The second item is a review of the elements of the operating budget that help to support the homeless system and the rental assistance, and the Joint Committee meets every year to look at those things that cross over between HHS and the PHED Committee. PHED Committee will return to the issue of affordable housing later this week, actually, and the HHS Committee will pick up some other items related to services to end and prevent homelessness, but these are the items that are really focused on the homeless system. Ms. Harris actually has a presentation to start the session, if that's okay with Councilmember Glass, to give you a little update on point in time and some other updates, and then we can dive into the specific issues.
Absolutely. Ms. Harris, please take it away.
Sure. Let me just pull up my slide deck. Okay. You all see that okay? Yeah, great. Okay, so thank you for having me. And before I get started, I did just want to take a brief moment to express my gratitude to all our nonprofit partners. That's from street outreach to emergency shelter, healthcare for the homeless, our housing providers. Together with the CEF team, we have worked tirelessly this year to not only keep people safe during the pandemic, but remaining steadfast on our goal of making homelessness rare, brief, and one time only. We cannot do this alone. It really does take a community-wide effort. So thank you again to all our nonprofit partners. This morning, I'm going to share with you a bit of highlights from the 2021 point in time, give you an update on some of our COVID programs, and then talk a bit about the details on our latest rent relief program. So every year, communities across the country are required by HUD to conduct a homeless point in time count. This typically happens in late January. This year it happened on January 27th. And we go out and we count people that are sleeping in emergency shelter, transitional housing, and then also those that are on the street. This year it was a modified point in time. We did not make use of volunteers. We just used our existing staff due to the pandemic and the need to social distance. We didn't want to bring 100 volunteers all together in a room, so slightly modified. So good news, we have had a decrease in homelessness this year. So overall, there was a 14% decrease in the midst of a pandemic. Our total number was 577 people. That is, over the last 10 years, we've actually had a decrease in homelessness of 41%, with our greatest decline being between 2018 and 2019 at 23%. In 2020, we did see a slight increase, but I'm happy to report that in 2021, that number went down again. So looking at it by population, so on the left-hand side, you'll see the count of individuals. So that we have seen a decrease of 20% in the last 10 years. Again, that greatest decline was between 2018 and 2019 of 22%. This year, there wasn't a significant change, decreased about 1%, but we're still pleased with those results. Then on the right-hand side, you'll see the count of families. And so I do want to point out that this is looking at households, not people and families. But we had a major decrease here. We saw a 52% decrease in the number of families experiencing homelessness between 2020 and 2021. Over the course of the last 10 years, that decrease has been 77%. Here you can just see who's homeless in the county. So primarily we have single adults in shelter making up 68% of the homeless population. Then you have your unsheltered adults. Adults and families is at 6%. 11% of the people experiencing homelessness in the county are children. And then 3% are unaccompanied youth. So that is youth that are between the ages of 18 and 24, non-parenting. Here's the race and ethnicity breakdown. We still are seeing disproportionate rates of Black or African Americans in our homeless continuum. So this year's point in time, it was about 60% of single adults identified as Black or African American. On the family side, that number is 78%. 17% of single adults identified as Latino, and on the family side, 9% identified as Latino, which is down a little bit from last year. Okay, I will say we're still cleaning up the data a bit on the point in time. So the details on specific subpopulations, like the number of people reporting physical disabilities, mental health, et cetera, that should be available to you in June when COG releases their regional point in time report. Okay, briefly give you some updates on our programs. I'm pleased to announce that in 2020, we actually housed twice as many people as we did in 2019. So you can see here, we've housed 252 single adults and 136 families. On the single adult side, most of those folks were going into permanent supportive housing. And then on the family side, most are going into rapid rehousing. But we have been able to serve a number of people with our COVID rent relief program. So this is using the CRF funds, the COVID rent relief program, rapid resolution for people exiting emergency shelter. So we provide the security deposit, first month's rent, and an additional 4 to 6 months of rental subsidy. To date, 99 single adults have been placed. I did include the racial breakdown just because I want us to always have equity in mind and to make sure that we are serving people proportionate to how they show up in our homeless system. So of the folks that received the COVID rent relief program, 63% identified as Black or African American. Okay, and then an update on our exit bonus program. So this is the direct cash assistance for single adults exiting emergency shelter. So we provide $5,000 in cash. 26 participants have received their $5,000. Only one has returned to shelter so far. Just a little bit about the eligibility criteria. So we're really targeting those folks that this is their first time experiencing homelessness. They came in as a result of the pandemic and have very low case management needs. And again, you can see the race of the participants, 69% identified as Black or African American. Okay, and this is an update on the COVID rent relief program to prevent evictions. So we've spent, this is a little outdated, I don't have this week's numbers, so we've spent a little bit more, but about 78% of the funds have been spent. We've served almost 4,000 households. You can see 18% were in an informal lease, 67% female-headed households. Again, 20% were brand new to HHS. They had not previously received assistance. So I think that our targeted outreach to those high-need communities is paying off. Okay, and then I will end by talking about our next COVID rent relief. So we have received a lot of money from Treasury, $31 million in direct allocation to the county, and then we will also be receiving an additional $28 million from the state from their Treasury allocation. This is not accurate. We had hoped to open up the application process today to do a soft launch. Unfortunately, we ran into some issues with the online application software. The translation was not right. So we are taking the next couple of days to ensure that the translation is correct in all languages so that we don't have any confusion and that we are able to ensure that people have equitable access to the program. 65% of the funds need to be spent by September of 2021. There's the eligibility criteria. So 50% AMI or below, they must have a COVID-related income loss. They must be at risk of homelessness, which is basically, are they behind in rent? We are asking that they're at least $1,000 in arrears and that they are a county resident. So for the design, we can provide up to $12,000 for rent arrears and 3 months of prospective rent. It doesn't mean that everyone will get $12,000, but we have seen that the longer the pandemic goes on, the average rent arrears is increasing from 3,400 to 7,000. So we wanted to make sure that we were able to both pay off the arrears, but also provide people with a bit of a cushion. For those households that are below 30% AMI, we can provide additional assistance for a maximum of 15 months. That includes both the arrears and the prospective rent. We do know that there's a lot of other rental assistance programs out there, and people may have already received assistance. Even if they did receive assistance, they're still eligible to apply for more, but the total amount from any program should not exceed $12,000. And then there is also, the Treasury allows you to use these funds for utility assistance. We will be doing that on a case-by-case basis. There's been a lot of money put in to the OHAP programs, the LIHEAP and the MEEP. So we want to make sure that we're maximizing those resources first. If they're eligible, we will use that. If not, then we can use the Treasury funds. Priority populations. So Treasury requirements, we must prioritize households who have been unemployed for 90 days or more. The state is requiring that we prioritize households living in the high need census tracts. They are actually using the Urban Institute created a vulnerability index, so they're using that, but they are allowing us to use our local homeless prevention index. And then we will also be prioritizing households who currently have a court notice for eviction. And then lastly, this time around, we are going to ask for some landlord concessions. Some of these are requirements of the state. We must ask that they waive all late interest and legal fees, that they cancel any existing eviction filings, that they agree to not file for eviction while the household is currently receiving assistance. So if we're doing prospective rent, we don't want them, a landlord, to file for eviction while the tenant is currently receiving assistance. We are asking that they offer to renew the lease for at least 90 days. We know the tenant holding over loophole has caused a lot of problems for people. So we do want them to be able to remain in their house. And then for those households that are below 30% AMI and are receiving longer term subsidy, we are asking that the landlord forgive 10% of the balance. And that is all I have for this morning. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, well, excellent presentation, Ms. Harris. And to start with the top line, that there's been a 52% reduction in families experiencing homelessness over this last year of a pandemic. I mean, that is absolutely incredible work. And it, quite frankly, defies expectations of what we all think would have happened during this health pandemic and economic crisis that we've been in. And it is truly a testament of the work that has been taking place over the last number of years and decade to prepare the county, our infrastructure, and our providers, social service providers as well, to make sure that we have the infrastructure ready. And then you couple that with the incredible federal, state, and county support that we all have been providing here as well, to make sure that we stem the number of people who would lose their home or who are unable to pay rent. And so again, a 52% reduction of families over the last year. Kudos to you, kudos to county government and our social service providers as well for stepping up during this incredible time of need. It really is, I'm trying to think of other adjectives to use, right? But it is not what we expected or what one would have expected. So again, thank you there. A number of my colleagues have asked to defer questions until after the presentations. I know Councilmember Jawando has a quick question I think he wants to ask relevant to this presentation.
I did. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Councilman Glass. Also agree. Great work as always. I know, obviously, I don't want to speak for you, Ms. Harris. You can address it, but I'm sure you're also, as we all are, concerned about a potential wave of evictions. And, you know, as we get to the end of the crisis, when there were protections to start to roll back, but this is no doubt, to Councilmember Glass's point, great work. I just wanted to speak to that last slide. You don't have to pull it back up, but I just want to give you thank you because I think that's critical that we provide that type of framework for landlords that are going to receive this on behalf of the tenants that we're asking for these things. And could you just operationalize that for me? I think I understand this will follow the similar program where the money will go directly to the landlord. So if they are going to apply, they will have to certify that they will agree to those various requirements, like no late fees, waiving all these other things that were on that list. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay.
Most of the funds will go directly to the landlord. We do always, we are able, if a landlord refuses to participate, we can give money directly to the client, but we prefer to not do that.
Yeah, you anticipated my second question because, I think that's a good backstop. We don't want to not get the assistance just because the landlord doesn't want to agree to some of these things, which I think would be a rare occurrence, I would hope. But we want to make sure we're providing the assistance, maximum assistance to the tenant as well. When we passed the rent stabilization temporary for COVID, late fees was not something we included, but this gives me some hope that I'm happy that we're including it in the requirements of this program. So thank you. And thank you, Mr. Glass.
Sure. Chair Albornoz.
Thank you. And it is a great headline, and having participated in the point in time account process, I know it is, it's a very well organized and impressive process. So these are numbers that I think are obviously relevant and help inform our work. I do worry a little bit that, there may be more to the story than just the headline numbers. I know that, in talking to various providers, the amount of requests for accessing different programs and services is significantly higher than it was the same time last year. And so the good news is that we do have a really robust and strong safety net that is being actively engaged by constituents and residents. And because we're able to catch more people on the front end than maybe other jurisdictions, it's preventing folks from falling entirely through the cracks, which is great. But we know that those systems are now kind of hitting max capacity in terms of both beds and placements. And I think the housing first model, which Ms. Harris, you and a lot of other advocates championed years ago, is working. But we also know that there's a limit in terms of how much housing stock is available to begin with. And so to Councilmember Jawando's point, families that are in crisis and entering into the system are entering into a system that is compromised and is already being tested at its limits, and waiting lists to get into certain programs are pretty long. So more of a comment than a question, but are there any other underlying indicators beyond the really relevant and important headline, Ms. Harris, that you think we need to keep an eye on, or that we should be keeping an eye on over this next year, and particularly over this next 2 years?
Sure. Thank you, Councilmember Albornoz, for that question. Yes, I am concerned. We haven't, there's been an eviction moratorium, so we don't know what will happen once evictions have started happening, I guess, last week. We haven't seen an increase yet. But eventually the federal resources are going to dry up, and there's going to be a long tail end to this. There will still be people in need, which is why I think it's important that we continue to focus on the long-term recovery efforts, like increasing the amount of the rental assistance program, that shallow subsidy. I think that will be a critical component to keeping people in their homes. The other piece that I'm very concerned about is the number of single adults. It remained about the same as last year, but we housed twice as many people. So we are definitely seeing increased inflow into that system. And again, once these federal resources dry up, we have the ESG for rapid rehousing. That's only good for 2 years. So I'm concerned about our ability to be able to maintain without increased investment. And investment in permanent solutions, I think looking into the development of deeply, deeply affordable housing where people are only paying, $400 or $500 in rent is going to be important for the future, so that people do have a place to go. Subsidies alone are not going to get us there. So I hope that answers your question.
It does. That's really helpful. I think one other point, and I have become much more familiar with this general category of issues over the last 2.5 years, and you in particular and your team have educated me tremendously. And one thing that I have learned is that while the overall number of folks who are able to identify housing options and provide with holistic services is growing, which is terrific, there are, although a smaller percentage, a subset worth a group of residents who need really severe and intense mental health services, and often fall into this gray area of policy that crosses over to the state. And so while the number is going down at a macro level for those folks who continue to be in the system over and over again, we're bombarding them with every service we can, but there is a policy holdup. And so I think as a follow-up to this discussion, it would be productive and helpful, particularly coming out of legislative session this year and seeing what, if any, gains were made in this space, for us to think about, from a policy perspective, what we can do to decrease that number even further, including those folks who are chronically, in the system, and we all struggle so much to get them out of. So would love to follow up on that. Again, more of a comment. Second comment is, last year when we reported out, we had seen an ongoing trend of older adults representing the group of folks homeless, and nationally, what we're seeing are younger people as well, and in some cases adolescents, because that number is going up. Are we continuing to see that trend with older adult seniors entering into the homeless space, or has that leveled off? And then have we started to see any evidence of younger folks who, sometimes because of very challenging circumstances at home, and people have had to be at home throughout this last year because of the pandemic, and home actually not being a safe place for them for a variety of reasons, are we seeing any of those trends here as well?
A great question that I do not have an answer for yet. We haven't been able to do that detailed of an analysis. These are just at the high level. I can say anecdotally, yes, we continue to see a number of older adults entering homelessness. That seems to be increasing year after year. And I do think that there has been more younger people entering our system. It's hard to say exactly what that means. This year has been unique in that we did not shut down our overflow shelters. So we kept them open. So it's hard to compare this year to last year, when we didn't typically have those shelters open, and the people that stayed year round were those with the most significant challenges. So more to come. We will certainly do that detailed analysis and share with you as we get the results.
Great, I appreciate that. Thank you. Councilmember Glass, I yield back to you.
Excellent comments. Thank you very much, Chair Albornoz. Next is Councilmember Friedson.
Thank you. Appreciate the conversation. Thank you for the presentation. I agree. I think saying that the calm before the storm is probably an inapt comparison, since there's nothing calm about what has been going on the past year. But I think we're all concerned about what happens later and what happens as we move forward. I also think that the numbers, we should be cautious, pleased that things are better than we might have thought, but that they are at a certain point, related to unprecedented actions that we're taking that are, both legal and otherwise, that may or may not continue. And so, I think of it as like the emergency triage versus the long-term treatment, which is along the lines, Ms. Harris, of what you were describing. And, we're focused mostly on the emergency triage now, as we should be, but there is a question of the long-term treatment as we move forward of this ongoing issue that will go beyond this current crisis and I think the numbers, may be a blip, unfortunately, and we have to be ready, for that. But it's a credit to you and to all of our service providers and partners and everything that we've done, that things are better than they might have otherwise been, and the unprecedented actions that have been taken. Yet, I think we still need to be prepared for it. But specifically on the presentation, a couple things. One, really glad to see also the landlord concession piece. I had my team and Miss McMillan and you had discussed something similar at one point at the early part of the pandemic. It was hard to make that work at that time, as part of a robust program. And so it's good to see that we're now at a point where that is something that is doable on more of a broad scale. I think it is something that has been done for a while on a case-by-case basis, as far as my understanding goes, based on the work that we had done previously. But it is good to see, and I am pleased to see the fact that that is part of the overall effort with some of these programs. So thank you for implementing that. I'm looking forward to hearing how that goes and seeing what the response is, because I think that will be important and could be instructive to some of the rental relief programs that we do moving forward. As the eviction moratorium and other policies go back to some semblance of normalcy, we do have some tools at our disposal and perhaps can learn what works and what doesn't work when we bring people together and try to, collaborate on these big issues. Quick question on the relief programs. I understand the delay. It was supposed to launch today. It's going to launch in a few days. I'm glad that you're going to get it right. I think that's the most important thing. I would ask that we get information before it goes live so that we can make sure that we're getting the information out to residents for each of our offices. I think we could be important partners, and as part of that outreach, I also hope that the other partners through Office of Community Partnerships and all the other folks who have been doing this work throughout the pandemic are engaged in that. But I would ask that happen. And I wanted to ask about the $59 million effectively, if you add the two, the 31 million from the feds and then the state pass-through money effectively. That's 65%, as you note in the presentation, has to be distributed by September. That's 4.5 months, give or take, depending on when this actually gets started. Given how long it has taken us to get the prior 20 million out, which was a lot longer than 4.5 months, and how much money we are talking about here and the complication of this program, how confident are we that we're going to be able to meet that 65% deadline by September?
As confident as I can be. I think it's a tall order. I mean, this is a lot of money to get out the door quickly. We have learned a lot, and we've made significant improvements in our process. We've hired more people. We've really figured out where the bottleneck was happening. This is more than you need to know, but it really was an issue of we didn't have enough people to approve, to do like a final approval, and so things were kind of getting stuck there. So we made a lot of improvements. We made the online application software will be much better and will hopefully allow us to process applications faster. So we will do it because we have to do it. And
sounds good. Well, I would suggest that perhaps we have an update, regular update of how that is going, even if it's in writing. At the end of the month, once the applications close, when the checks are going to start going out, how much, what percentage we've got, so that we can target it. And if there is an issue before we get to September, that we can address it. And if it requires, changes, resources, or, other support that you all need in order to make this happen, that we do it. I would hate for federal and state through federal money to not be able to be utilized that's desperately needed by residents because the administration of it was challenging. And I recognize, creating a new program this quickly, distributing that much money to a population that can be, challenging to serve and has a lot of wraparound services that go along with it, is an issue. So it's not a criticism, it's just a reflection of the reality that we face. And so hopefully we can work together on that. And if we could come up with, some formal reporting structure to the joint committee or to the full council, I think that would be helpful. So I just wanted to put that.
Hey, Vivian.
Is now, if you could mute, and I hope you are okay. Okay.
Yes, I don't know if that's for Ms. Harris, Ms. McMillan, a combination of both, but I just put it out there and I'll yield back, Mr. Glass. Thanks.
We're happy to send regular updates. I think that's fair and reasonable, and we can do that. The other thing I will say, which is different this time, is we are offering people more money, so that will help us spend faster as well.
Yeah, and that's good on both counts. I think
Yes.
It'll be easier to administer and more impactful to the residents who desperately need this support. So I'm happy on that as well. So thank you for that. And I'll yield back again.
Yield back again. Awesome. Thank you. Councilmember Rice.
Well, thank you very much, Lead Glass. And let me just start with, so Ms. Harris, you and I have talked since you first took the position about the inventory of types of housing that have impacts on our folks who then experience homelessness, and some of the challenges related to women and children primarily. What are we seeing as some of the trends when it comes to folks who are looking for and the affordability of that particular type of housing over some of the other cohorts that are out there? And so what should our strategy be, not only around making sure that we can focus on keeping folks in that type of housing because the availability may not be as robust as it is for some of our single individuals or other types of individuals. So can you just share a little bit about some of what we're seeing when it comes to those types of challenges?
Sure. And one other thing I will say about families, because I know Councilmember Rice that you have always had an issue with this. We do not have any families in motels right now. We're only using motels for single adults. We have adequate space in our shelter, our family shelter. So just wanted you to be aware of that. As for your question about trends, I think what we struggle with on the family side is really those larger families. That's where we run into problems. Even if we have a voucher, just being able to find a unit or a house that's large enough to serve a family of 5 or 6. We've had families as large as 10. So that's really where the biggest challenge is just trying to find those larger units, whether it's a single family home or a townhouse or something that's been a real struggle. And of course, there's not enough affordable units in the county. That continues to be a struggle. We are housing people primarily with rapid rehousing, which is the families anyway, which is a short-term subsidy. So we do our best to help people identify a unit that they're going to be able to afford in the long term. But that is a real challenge. And again, I'll just make another plug for the rental assistance program, which has allowed us to be able to sustain families that come through rapid rehousing, have increased their income, but are still a little bit short to be able to afford their units. So having that permanent shallow subsidy is a real game changer for them.
So understanding across the board that those are not the norm. But are there limitations that are currently in place when it comes to maximums that don't give us the flexibility? Because it's always cheaper. We know this across the board. Everybody on this call knows it's cheaper to keep people in something than have them get evicted, lose their housing, and then try and find something else. So are there limitations that we see that maybe for special circumstances we need to change to allow us to give a little bit more to get across that hump that you're talking about, that would keep folks in their current housing versus them being reset and then having to try and find something that really doesn't exist, that is more of that unicorn in a haystack. So.
Yeah, that's a great question. So on the prevention side, it is a case by case situation. We have to decide, but I will say if a family is in a unit that is mostly affordable and they're not going to be able to find something cheaper, we do everything we can to try and keep them there. It doesn't do us any good if they're paying, $1,200, but they're so far behind that they would have to move, but they're only going to find something that's $1,600. That doesn't serve the family well or serve us well. So whenever possible, we try to keep people in their existing unit. But sometimes we see that families come in and they're in a unit that they really shouldn't have been in the first place, that there was no way that they could afford it. So in those situations, yes, it makes more sense for us to find a more affordable unit and go from there.
So I know strategically, and I'll just close with this, and this is one for maybe Ms. McMillan as well. We've strategically asked for, when it comes to new development, of having some larger units, things like that, to ensure that we can provide assistance for folks. Is there anything that we might want to do coupled with some of this information? And if it's we need to come back to this, that's certainly fine. But as we look at our zoning, as we look at what it is that we're asking for developers to put forward in terms of units, what should our strategy be moving forward to accomplish this? Because we know more inventory drives down price. And so if these units are very rare, the price is going to be extraordinarily high. And so therefore we lose all around. So what should our strategy be moving forward when it comes to these types of units that, again, are the rarities here in Montgomery County? Linda, you can go ahead.
So I was going to say, when we updated the MPDU program, one of the things we did was to say that instead of like a count by count, unit to unit, that DHCA could work with a developer to use the floor area, the square footage, so that potentially we could create more larger units. I don't know, it's a fairly recent change. I don't know what the update is on whether we've been able to engage any developers in that, but that was a specific strategy that the council approved to try to get some flexibility in the MPDU process to get some larger units. I would also say that I know DHCA did work under a right of first refusal to retain a rental townhouse community, which we don't have very many of, which was really important for getting those larger units. And it's also why it's really important not to lose townhomes that are in the MPDU program, and to use our funding to make sure that we keep those in an income, an income restricted, affordable setting, rather than let them, be sold out into the private market. So I think that the townhome units are really an issue to focus on, but trying to see if we can engage developers in some of the new projects to see if they will look at larger units is something that we can discuss with DHCA further also.
Mr. Nagam, did you have any updates as to what potential ground we may have gained?
Yeah, sure. And I can tell you, 3 and 4 bedroom units are hard to come by. This is not just in Montgomery. This is true elsewhere in the region too. That being said, we look for opportunities where we can, get some of the larger units, like in the, Bushy Drive, where we leverage the county-owned land. That was an example. Naples Manor project that Linda was referring to, where we exercise our right of first refusal. Perfect example. 3 bedroom townhomes with finished basement. These are the properties that are difficult to come by. So we always look for those opportunities, and we try to provide preference points if the developer can provide, bigger size units.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Thank you, guys.
I just want to do a quick time check. I know a couple of my colleagues have contacted me and said they have a hard stop at 11:30. I know that we've covered a lot of ground in this first item on this packet, but let's keep plowing forward. I want to turn it over to the PHED committee chair, Mr. Reamer.
Thank you. I thought we were done with the presentations. I guess I didn't realize we were only a piece into the packet. Amanda, could you please show us the slide on the subsidy program and remind me, for the new funds that we're receiving from the federal and state level, are there restrictions based on citizenship status?
No, there is not. Which slide, the new program or the existing?
Existing.
Okay.
Really? So the federal and the state money, the $59 million that's coming in, anyone's eligible as long as they live here.
Correct.
That's great news. Has that been the case all along? Or I recall earlier on we were having some issues with that, but maybe I'm.
It was not entirely clear, and then Treasury updated their guidance. So immigration status is not an eligibility criteria.
But it was an issue with the CDBG rental assistance. So
Correct.
just remember, we
Correct.
have several different programs.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah,
Okay.
any of the HUD funded programs, yes, immigration status is an issue.
Got it. Okay.
This is the slide that you wanted.
Yeah. Very good. Could you tell us a bit more about the $5,000, rapid exit? When was that money provided by and large? When do you think? I don't know. What is the review process like to, see results from that? When do we really? I mean, I imagine it's soon. At this point, it's too soon to know much. But when do you think we should start thinking more about examining results and so forth?
Yeah, I would say at least another 6 months. We plan on evaluating the participants every month for 12 months. So we'll follow them for 12 months. But I think anything right now, it's just too soon. It's only been, I think we issued our first check maybe 3 months ago. So there hasn't been enough time to really determine whether it's working or not. I mean, so far so good. We've only had one person return, so that's positive, but it is going to take some more time before we really see the results.
Okay, so 6 months, September, October, we'll have an update and we'll be able to know more. And at the time, when you do come back, if you could talk to us about how much we might have spent providing services for that individual, over that same amount of time, so that we can have that nice side-by-side comparison.
Sure, I can absolutely do that.
Cool. Very exciting program. Compliments to you and the team for being so on the ball that you could move quickly and design and make this happen. And I'm really on the edge of my seat to see how it goes. So thank you. All right, back to you, Mr. Chair, or Mr. Lee. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair Reamer, and I'll correct my previous statement. Ms. Harris's presentation is the only formal presentation that we are having, so we can continue the conversation for at least the next half hour. And with that, I'll turn it over to Chair Albornoz.
This is totally lighter note, but my dad is watching our 4-year-old downstairs while I'm on this Zoom. They've got this on in the background. And my 4-year-old wanted to let me know that she appreciated the unicorn comment made by Councilmember Rice earlier. And I'll note, unicorn in a haystack, significantly harder to find than a needle. so just to underscore the point. So thank you, Councilmember Rice. You added some light brevity in our house this morning.
That was a great comment. I wanted more. So real quick. So I just have a question, and then I'll turn it over to you, Councilmember Girondo. So when we look at this issue in its totality, and the data that Ms. Harris shared at the beginning, 52% reduction in families experiencing homelessness in this just 1 year, and if I took the notes correctly, 77% decrease. Is that over the last decade? Right, so incredible trend lines there. Now, coupling this with the conversation that we just had about investing $13 million in a facility, I'm curious, how much thought or flexibility there might be with that facility, given the decreased numbers that we're seeing, and certainly not saying that will be that way, or we won't know how long it'll be that way. Hopefully it'll continue trending down. But the trend that we have been working on here in the council, and also best practices out in the community, building micro units, and then even last year, the appropriation that we put forward, working with Bethesda Cares for master leasing programs. And so what type of, with this facility particularly, how does it interplay with the data that you've just shared with us? Ms. Harris.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So, I mean, the number of people that are accessing shelter has remained pretty steady throughout the pandemic. So that's sort of that's how we got to the number of needing 200 beds. I think it's important to remember the point in time is just a snapshot. So that's just on one night. That doesn't mean that that's how many people over the course of the year experience homelessness. So we serve about 2,000 people in our homeless continuum annually. So,
well, let me, yeah, I'm sorry, continue if you want.
Nope, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, clearly important services, extremely important services, caring for those who are most vulnerable in the community. But again, given the trend lines, just I'll put it out there that I think, not to complicate things at all, but to allow for as much flexibility with that space for MCCH in the short term to be able to conduct its work, but looking out into the future, whether or not there might be more space in there for whatever might come, right? And again, I'm just making a projection based on the information that is in front of us. And you were absolutely correct. The point in time is exactly that, a point in time. And it's just, as you noted, it's interesting. And so I think we just need to give it a little more thought and be cognizant of those trend lines and the infrastructure that we're building, and making sure that we marry those two as closely as possible.
Yeah.
Councilmember Jawando.
Thank you. Great points, Councilmember Glass. And, so I'm glad I held off just because I thought we had another presentation. So I did a couple more questions. Could you just hone in on the shallow subsidy issue, Ms. Harris? Because, we've talked about this before, and we're doing the budget right now. Like, we've got all this one-time money. Obviously, we want to make sure things are sustainable over time. Just for the millions watching at home, as I like to say, where is it at now? What does it need to go to? How much will that cost? I want to create some momentum and public accountability. I think all my colleagues want to do this, so can you just lay that out, please? And how does that work vis-a-vis what the budget was sent over, and over time, does it need to go up, and does that require legislation? All those issues. Can you just speak to that?
Sure. So the rental assistance program, shallow subsidy program, right now, the maximum amount that a person can receive is $200 per month. At the time the program was created, $200 was 25% of fair market rents, which is obviously not the case anymore.
And when was that program created? That was how long ago?
15 years ago, 20 years ago, a long time ago. Linda can probably speak to the exact time. She's been here longer than me. So we have changed that. We have updated the code. So thank you all, council, for doing that. That made some adjustments to the eligibility criteria. So we've dropped the age from 62 to 55, recognizing that people experiencing homelessness age faster than the general population, just harder to find work at that age. And also just removed the citizenship issue from the code. The regulations have been sent over and were reviewed by the HHS committee. we will be moving forward with and Linda can help me out if I don't say this correctly, but method 3. So we are able to change the rate of the subsidy over time, that we don't have to actually go into to change code. We can just do that through regulation. So because we know rents are going to continue to increase. What is being recommended by the county executive is an additional $1 million for the rental assistance program. The previous program was $4 million. In order for us to serve the same number of people that we were serving before at the higher rate, we would actually need another $4 million. But the 1 million will help get us closer. Over the course of the last year or so, we have slowed down enrollment. So there's a lot of turnover in that program anyway. People just are not eligible anymore. They don't need the assistance. But we have slowed down enrollment so that we're at a place right now with the additional $1 million, if approved by council, we would be able to serve everyone that's in the program right now, as long as they meet the new eligibility criteria at that higher rate, and then also enroll, I believe, another 500 or so households.
Okay, and the new rate is
400.
right. So doubling of the rate, the maximum, and how many are we currently serving, roughly?
I can get that for you. Okay. I have to check my notes.
But this would allow all those folks who are in the program to get 400, double the maximum, and then. Well, okay, go ahead, Linda.
I was just going to say, so this is one of your budget items. So and it's a good time for you to just talk about it, I think, that way. So everything that Ms. Harris has said is spot on. The new regulation, the council updated the law, the regulation just came over, HHS committee just had a discussion of it. It's not a flat amount. So HHS looks at the households, the rent that is paid, and then also wants to get them to either, 30% or 40% of their income being spent on rent. So some people might get the maximum, which would be, I think, about $430 a month would be the maximum, because the maximum is based on 25% of the average 2-bedroom apartment. But some people might not need the maximum to reach the criteria that HHS is looking for. So it's a little flexible. Because the old maximum was so low, everybody basically ended up with $200 because it was so low. Right. There is a little matching to the household that way. So in FY20, there were 1,354 households that were served through RAP, and that's come down because of what Ms. Harris said. Since there's generally attrition in this particular program, they've been reducing the number in order to match better with what the new requirements would be. But if you wanted to get back, there has been $4 million basically allocated for this for several years. If you wanted to be able to serve back at the numbers of the 1900, you would have to add another $4 million. What the executive has recommended is $1 million. And I would also say that the executive has identified this as funding that would come from the Rescue Plan Act, from ARPA in FY22. And I would recommend approval of that, but I'm going to put a cautionary note on that one, which is this is an ongoing shallow subsidy. So it's a perfectly legitimate use of the ARPA funds in terms of response to the pandemic and housing, but that cost will continue in future years. So you want to be very cautious about how much from ARPA you would invest into this particular program. And that's a little different from another budget item you have, which is an expansion of rapid rehousing. And so there's $490,000 recommended by the executive to expand the rapid rehousing program. And rapid rehousing, generally goes from 12 to 24 months. And so using something like ARPA for that is actually really a good idea, because you can just adjust that program easily. Right. You wouldn't ever be sort of having to worry about taking away a subsidy from somebody. So that's another one of your budget points that the Joint Committee needs to give a recommendation on. But in terms of Recovery Act money and RAP, I just think we need to be limited. And if you wanted to look at additional funding for RAP, we really have to think about long-term sources of funding.
Yeah. Yeah.
Councilmember Girondo, can I make a suggestion?
Please. Yes.
We're going to transition to Ms. McMillan taking us through the budgetary items. How
I'll
about we do
hold.
that? And then, right, exactly. When we get to that point, we can raise some questions or comments.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Harris. Thank you, Ms. McGill.
Ms. McMillan, you want to walk us through our decision points?
Yeah. So I'm actually going to take you back to your very first item for your first decision point. And this has to do with an additional $3.08 million for funding the emergency shelter system. So the county executive has put in an additional $3 million. This is not identified as ARPA funds, so this is long-term funds to add to the contracts for the shelter system. And as you've already discussed, there's a couple issues going on with the shelter system. The first being additional capacity through the new shelter that will be added. The second is that the policy that you are being asked to endorse is to permanently move to year-round shelter. So as you will recall, pre-COVID, we had a system where a portion of the beds remained available year-round, and then we went into an overflow system. If COVID has taught us anything, it's that year-round really is the appropriate way to go. So this additional money would both address the resizing of the system, but also the year-round nature of that.
And this is true progress, making sure that we have a shelter system that's open 365 days a year rather than just in winter or extreme summer days. And again, as this last year has shown us, this is the direction we need to move in. And I appreciate the county executive helping to move us in this direction.
Right. So pre-COVID, we spent about $2.67 million on the emergency shelter system. With the addition of the $3 million, you would be up at about $5.75 million. What I'm recommending to you at the moment is to approve the funding. I think it's a reasonable amount of funding, but that you will need to return because frankly, we are still in pandemic operations. So for this, as Ms. Harris has said, you optimistically, if we can get the new shelter in place and the pandemic comes under control, then these new contracts might go into place by January. But right now we're still operating in a pandemic system. So honestly, we don't know if this is exactly the right amount of money. We don't quite know what the system is. The department is proposing going to a system where an organization would get paid per bed, but not like a daily fee. So it wouldn't incentivize people to keep people in beds, but it kind of says, here's an average cost. And if you're running a shelter of X size, then we would expect your budget to be, a certain amount of dollars. But we also want to make sure that as these contracts are developed, they've taken into account some of the separate contracts that have developed over the years for certain programming or security. Right now, the contracts, frankly, for most of the emergency shelters have been in place for many, many, many years. And from a contracting standpoint, they're kind of difficult to totally put in one place. So in terms of the budget, I would recommend that the Joint Committee approve the executive's $3 million and that we revisit this and get some more detailed information on how this would really be implemented through the new contracting system.
Any of my colleagues have any questions or want to make a motion?
So moved.
I think you could probably do them without, but yeah, second, okay.
Moved by Councilmember Rice, seconded by Councilmember Reamer. All those in favor of this $3.081 million appropriation? Very good. Okay.
The second item that is in the packet is I just wanted to identify for you a few things in the Housing Initiative Fund because the Housing Initiative Fund houses so much money for the homeless system. And so actually the county executive has recommended a substantial increase in the Housing Initiative Fund. If everything is approved, there would be over $89 million for affordable housing, production, preservation, and the support of rental assistance and the home ownership programs. Some of this increase is from a higher than expected beginning balance, but actually there is a significant increase in the transfer from the general fund, over $5 million. And there is $6.8 million that comes from the proceeds of land sales, which is 25% of the proceeds of land sales is to go to the Housing Initiative Fund. One of the things I did want to point out for you, however, is that the recordation tax premium, which is really the source within the HIF that is so dedicated to the homeless system, as you know, is challenged right now. And so what I wanted to say is that this budget sustains all the funding that is needed, but that's because DHCA over the years has always kept a little bit of contingency. So it's never fully, spent out how much recordation tax comes in a given year because it's volatile. So there is a contingency within the HIF. And so if you look at the estimate for the current year, you'll see it's actually a little bit below what the expected amount is for 22 and the spending that's attached to that. But because of DHCA's budgetary planning, that should not be an issue because they do have some contingency funds that can keep all those programs going. So I did want to point that out for the Joint Committee.
Sure. And so I would invite Director Nagam to explain, at least to me and to everyone else who's curious, in a year when home sales at least have skyrocketed here and elsewhere, why is it that our recordation tax has an 11% decrease?
Sure, I can start here, and Pofen I think is here too. She can join me in explaining, further. So this is the premium recordation tax. This is where the decrease has been, and the decrease is about $3 million. So these are the homes which are selling above $500,000 as such. So that's where, based on the estimates that our Department of Finance got, they're projecting a decrease of $3 million for FY22. Now, as Linda mentioned, in order to keep everything whole, and in fact, there's a 3% increase in HHS budget and the HOC's budget, we are still able to make the numbers work by absorbing the reduction in the premium by reducing our contingency line item in our FY22 budget to more like $700,000 in the new budget, and then also reducing our discretionary funding available to DHCA. Pofen, I don't know if you, on the recordation tax premium, if you have any other information from Department of Finance per se.
You're muted.
You're muted.
Good morning, council member. Sorry, this is Paul Salem from OMB. I'm just kind of, Asim and Linda have mentioned it, and also in the packet, Linda's packet also demonstrated the projection for recordation tax premium, which is sort of primary sources for rental assistance program that allocated into the MHI, have sort of decreased. If you look at the budget amount for FY21 versus what is the estimate, the updated information provided by finance has been decreased by almost 9 million. So the premium actually, as you're aware of, half of them is go to the MHI, and the other half is using for the CIP. So because the projected revenue has declined, and inevitably that affect the actual number, the revenue that come into the HIF. And so for FY22, the projection slightly increased for FY21, the second quarter estimate, which sort of increased the budget that come into HIF for FY22 a little bit, but it's about the $14.7 million to the rental assistance program.
I appreciate the explanation, at least with regard to the budget and how you're maneuvering to make up for the shortfall. But Director Nagam, I'm going to ask again, do we know why there's an 11% decrease? I appreciate you sharing how we're remedying it, but what is the rationale for it?
I mean, as we were mentioning, this is the premium on the recordation tax. So this is on the homes which are being sold above $500,000. So depending upon, what the projections are in terms of the home sales in the county. That's how Department of Finance calculates what the premium on recordation tax is going to be. And that's what translates back into our budget. So that's where those numbers are coming from. The decrease, what they're estimating is for FY22, there will be a decrease of $3 million on the premium recordation tax.
And I believe some of it is with the transactions on the commercial side as well.
I presumed as much, and Councilmember Friesen's raising his hand. I presume he'll share some sunlight into this. Yeah, Councilmember Friesen.
Yeah, I just want to point out, I mean, I think we get caught up in the home sale prices, which are skyrocketing, but the numbers of transactions, because they're one of the reasons why home prices are going up so high is that there isn't enough of a supply. So that's part of the issue. And then the commercial transactions have been weak. That was part of the finance presentation to us back in December as part of the projections. I think we could probably get an update of whether or not there have been any underlying changes to that. But I think those two factors from what we've seen before, it's not the home sale price, which is what most people focus on. The impact of the county is really more impacted in the number of homes above 500,000 that are selling on a regular basis, and whether or not that's meeting the projections, and the number of commercial transactions. And over the last many years, commercial transactions in particular, those transactions have been down and have missed projections, fairly repeatedly, which is part of the reason why this council has tried to step up to increase that activity as much as we can.
And over the last few months, the median sales price in Montgomery County is about $500,000. So, okay. Anyone else have any questions or comments?
And again, there's some other issues the Fed committee will return to regarding the HIF and some of the other pressures long-term on the HIF and the use of the affordable housing designated reserve that the council has this year, but they aren't as tied to the homeless numbers as recordation tax, which is why I wanted to bring that to your attention. The executive's budget does also continue all the funding that's needed for the permanent supportive housing that's within the HIF. And so those are the programs like Housing First, our 100,000 homes, or Zero 2016. And so my recommendation to the committee is just to concur with the allocations within the HIF for affordable housing, for homelessness services, sorry.
Chair Reamer.
And the rental assistance, I mean, we have $59 million coming in for COVID rental assistance. To some extent, is it all fungible, or is that rental assistance in the HIF is for very specific commitments that are sort of...
Right. So the rental assistance that's in the HIF is for our long-term programs. So the rental assistance program, which becomes very confusing this year, but the rental assistance program is the long-term subsidy that Ms. Harris spoke about earlier. And then the other programs, which are the permanent supportive housing, are also long-term subsidy with wraparound. So the programs that are in the HIF are not the same as the COVID rent relief, right? So in that sense, rental assistance is really short-term rent relief. So it's not fungible money that way.
So bottom line is the amount of funding in FY22 greater or equal to what was in FY21 for these programs?
So it will serve the same, it basically is steady funding within the HIF for the HIF funded homeless programs.
So the amount of funding that is long-term funding for very, very low income housing is unchanged in this recommendation.
Within the HIF, yes.
Within the HIF. All right, well, I think we should put a pin in that. It's a little inconsistent with what I thought, we might have received, but, all right. So at the moment, this is the funding, as you said, this is like HOC providing, we were just talking about, I think Amanda mentioned, like housing for people who are super low income. They need to be able to access rental support, and it's often long-term, and this is the funding that provides that. And we're looking at a sort of a flat funding for that.
Yes. And one of those issues is that funding has come from the recordation tax, and the recordation tax as we just discussed, is not increasing. And so the recommendation in the executive's budget is to hold those programs harmless, to hold them steady.
All right, well, let's just put a pin in that. I don't want to lose this thread because it might be worth thinking about whether HIF money should move, a little bit of HIF money should move here or something. But okay.
Okay.
Just noted for my own purpose and my colleagues as well. Thank you. And
it is recorded for posterity's sake, and as Ms. McMillan said, Fed committee will have a further conversation, so it will live on.
Well,
okay, anyone want to make a motion on this item number 3?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Chair Raymer moves it and Councilmember Friedson seconds. All those in favor of the HIF recommendations for FY22? Unanimous. Thank you.
And the next budget recommendation, which you've already had a discussion about, is to add $1 million, and that would be to the DHHS budget to increase the amount of money for the rental assistance program. But as we've discussed, it will serve fewer households because it will go up by 20%, but the expected maximum benefit is basically going to double. So nobody will be, they're working it through attrition, but in total at the moment, it will serve fewer households than previously.
As I recall, the last time this joint committee met in person, we were astonished to learn that the $200 subsidy had been in place for nearly 20 years, and we all advocated that it increase. And I'm glad that in a few seconds, we will be voting to support that increase taking place. Chair Raymer.
How much money needs to be added to serve the same number of people?
Yeah, that's the 4 million.
Well, yes, so another 3 million.
Okay. And that's what's being recommended?
No, so 1 million. So the executive is increasing by 1 million. So instead of 4 million, there'd be a total of 5 million for this program. And you would actually need to get to 8 million if you wanted to sort of hold the program harmless from where it was a year ago in terms of number of households.
We'll have to come back to this in the subsequent. Thanks.
Councilmember Jawando.
Yeah, that was going to be my point. I mean, I don't want to do it on the fly here, but I just think we need to come back to this because I want to learn a little bit more about from Ms. Harris and her team and with Linda about who are these, if we're doing attrition, like what it's going to look like, who would be phased out. It concerns, I think, many of us and me on its face that we would reduce the number of people served at a time where we're worried about an eviction crisis looming. I am sensitive to the point that Ms. McMillan brought up that I think across the board, we have a unique opportunity in this time to make some big investments in the next 2 years that could maybe be catalyzed by one-time money, but that we want to make sure that we can sustain these things over time. And so I just would like to put a bookmark in this. We obviously want to approve. I'm glad we're going to go up to the higher amount and make it more effective for people. But I think we need to revisit this issue of holding harmless and maybe even going a little higher. So I just wanted to flag that.
Your points, you and Chair Raymer are right about what we've stated, collectively agreed upon, and where this gets us or doesn't get us. I'll also share for the Fed committee members that last Thursday, the HHS committee had a thorough conversation about the rental assistance program and about the new regulatory changes. So take a look at that packet or speak to Ms. McMillan and or Ms. Harris, and we can have those future conversations as well. I will say that I was satisfied, or the committee was satisfied with the regulatory changes, recognizing that if we want to get to where we have to go, we are trying to cut out some unhonest brokers, dishonest brokers in the county, and just modernizing some of our practices. So I think we're moving in the right direction, but your points are absolutely spot on. Is there a motion for item number 4, $1 million for the RAP program?
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Friedson, seconded by Councilmember Rice. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you.
Okay. The next item that was in the packet was to talk about the rental relief program, but I think you've had a lot of discussion about that and asked for regular reporting. So I think we're good on that for now. It's not a budgetary action item. And then the next to last item that's in the packet was to give you an outline of the tenant support, including the legal aid for evictions. And so it does show you the funding that is with the current funding, both federal and through DHCA, that is with the partners, Housing Initiative Partnership, Latino Economic Development Corporation, Renters Alliance, Maryland Legal Aid, Homeless Persons Representation Project. That's the one you most recently took an action on through a non-competitive award. There is some money that can be used from the Treasury dollars for these purposes. That's when you see the federal money. I would let folks ask questions. I know you're on a time constraint and we can always revisit this because you've talked about it regularly anyway. But the courts have reopened. Legal aid is on site. The homeless persons representation is on site. The nonprofit partners are actually also being on site to help legal aid out so that there are folks there to help people that come in. The biggest issue right now is making sure people come to court. That is like really the biggest issue. Probably another big issue is making sure people who are being told they might be evicted, but they haven't gotten any kind of court document, to make sure they reach out to DHCA or to one of the partners to see if the landlord is acting legally, because that is another issue as well. But I would let either DHCA, or if you just wanted to have some questions, however you want to work it. I know some of you are on time constraints. And there would be another $218,000 that's in the base of the DHCA budget for this topic as well, although at the moment it is not allocated out, and we would allocate that as needed because we have some federal funds at the moment.
Any of my colleagues have any questions or comments? Chair Reamer.
I would like to know what the reporting is for these funds, and tell us more about the HHS, the federal HHS grant.
So of the $31 million that came in from Treasury for the rental assistance, a portion of it is eligible to be used for housing stabilization, which can be used for this purpose of helping to prevent evictions. And so when you see the federal dollars that are being used, it's coming from that source.
Okay. And is there a unified reporting for how these funds, so all these organizations will be providing us with a comparable report on the work that they do?
Mr. Demaray, do you want to talk about how DHCA is getting reporting?
Yes, it'll be good. Good morning, Frank Demaray with DHCA. And the reporting on this is a continuation of the structure of the contracts and agreements that we entered into with these organizations last year, that they have a scope of work. They have a certain number of activities and events and outreach efforts that they are responsible for performing and then reporting on. And all of their billing, invoicing, is a function of the individual activities, the staff costs, the operation costs. What Linda was mentioning in terms of the challenge of getting to the tenants before they get their notice to go to court, to understand their protections under the eviction prevention, CDC order, the governor's order. We have 25,000 flyers going out and being distributed. We have events going on, virtual and in person. The organizations are showing up at buildings, working with tenants there, working with tenants to show up at court. So there's a package of services for each of these organizations with different levels of services for tenant outreach and education, tenant counseling, financial information, and then for the legal representation.
And why is it that we're not providing more funding for actual legal representation? It seems like that was, is this the most we can provide to this group? Or
this is what they each defined as the necessary funding for the work that they do. So this is in response to their proposals to cover their work over 12 months. And their work in the courts is generally every day they'll have 2 lawyers and 1 paralegal at the courts during the surge that we expect to occur over the next 2 months, and that they've been billing us based on their delivery. And this is consistent with the billings that they anticipate as the courts open up.
And I would just say in calls I've been on, the message to them is to let us know if the courts reopen and have additional dockets and they need to have more attorneys on site, like, to let us know. So this is what they've actually brought forth.
I mean, okay, it's interesting. We got $600,000 for outreach, only 120 for actual representation, if I'm understanding it
Well,
correctly.
legal aid has some other sources of funding, and the homeless persons representation project the council just brought on recently because legal aid is not able to represent all our low-income residents. And so I know DHCA has been committed that if it turns out additional funds are needed, they would bring that forward.
And Maryland Legal Aid received $107,000 in last year's awards, and so they're still actually working through those funds. The courts were closed most of that time period, so this is a combination of the capacity that they retained from that funding and what they've indicated. And as Linda says, the fiscal 22 budget will have a continuing next opportunity to focus on where the needs are.
Okay, continuing conversation. I gotta get my laptop charger, so I'm gonna turn my camera off for a moment.
Okay, Ms. McMillan, this is not a vote, right?
I just want to make sure that you're aware and concur with what's going on in this area, since it's so important to what's happening in the world of evictions. And then the last item really is just to highlight something within the HIF, which is certain grants that go to organizations that really support the communities that have affordable housing. These are long-standing contracts, but I just bring them to you because they are part of the FY22 budget recommendations.
And on that last point regarding legal aid for evictions, I think there's some legislation that might or might not be passed between now and midnight tonight in Annapolis regarding some of these things. And so we'll know more in the by tomorrow morning whether or not the state of Maryland will be supporting these efforts. Any comments? Not seeing any comments, then I'll just close out this joint committee hearing conversation. My appreciation to HHS and DHCA for all the work that you've been doing. Clearly, the numbers that you've shared with us show that your work is working, and that our shared goal of making sure that residents are healthy, safe, and housed during this pandemic is being fulfilled as best we can here, and that ultimately we want to make sure that homelessness is rare, brief, and non-recurring. And all of those goals seem to be moving forward with good trend lines, good work, and all of us in support of your efforts. And so thank you to my colleagues for this really thorough and thoughtful conversation. And thank you to everybody here in Montgomery County for all of your services, including our nonprofit providers who, as we've highlighted through these 2 hours, are integral to the efforts here to make sure our most vulnerable are safe. So thank you all, and that concludes our conversation. Oh, I'll turn it over back to Chair Albernaz. Thank you.
No, I was just saying bye. Good job. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Chair Raymer, thank you.